So my name is Colin Chambers. I work for Mankato Computer Technology and have for many years now down in Old Town. And I'm of course joined by Trevor, who I will allow to eloquently introduce himself in a moment. He's got the kids running through in the background. But first and foremost, I'm going to let you all know how you can find these resources that we're about to cover for your own reference at any point during the future. All of the presentations that we do through Vine have been put up on our website, the Mankato Computer Technology website. So you can all see my screen here.
Yep.
Okay. So if you go to mankatotex.com, or if you search for Mankato Computer Technology, we should hopefully be the first result. From our homepage here, mankatotex.com, if you just go up to the About section, you'll get this little pop-up. At the very bottom is presentations. If you click on presentations, that will take you to a list of all the presentations we've done through Vine, including today's. If you click on that, it'll take you into the PDF of the presentation that you can view right in your browser. Otherwise, you can also hit this button here to download, or if you feel like printing it off, although today's is 61 pages, so be mindful of that before you're hitting the print button. That button is right up here as well. Otherwise, you can always go back and reference any of this online anytime you have an internet connection.
So we just type in Mankato Computer Technology, and then we can access all this?
Yeah, you can certainly search for that, Mankato Computer Technology. Otherwise, Mankato, if you just type in mankatotex.com, it'll take you right to the home page.
Okay.
Just go to the About and then presentations, and you can select today's topic.
And just as a reminder that Vine, we are recording this presentation. I say presentation, Colin says presentations. And that'll be on our vinevolunteers.com page, and just click on virtual Vine and scroll down, and you'll see a lot of our past educational presentations are there, the recorded video.
Okay. Get over there. Get in.
All right, so Colin's usually our man behind the scenes, and I say that because usually he doesn't have a camera, so he's kind of like my Wizard of Oz back there making all the magic happen. But my name's Trevor. I don't work for Mankato Computer Technology. I actually work for a company called Master Electric here in town. But I moved here like 9 years ago, and one of the first stores I ever went to was Mankato Computer Repair at the time, and I really liked interacting with Wes and Andy that were down there at the time, and created a cool connection, great place to hang out, great place to get all the computer needs I had taken care of. And as I've traveled around and had a couple different businesses that I work for here in Mankato, I've developed relationships with the store in other ways, and at some point we came across the idea that I was helping people with computer problems, and they were helping spread my business. So we said, how can we work together? And this was our idea. So we started a while ago teaching these classes, and we changed venues a couple times. And now we've been here at the Vine, and Mike has been a really great host for us. And we're hoping that we don't have to be virtual much longer, because these classes do go a little bit better in person. But it's been a fun year of trying to do them all virtually. And we have a great class today. My favorite thing about the class today is it actually, almost every slide is about another class that we teach. So we're going to skim over everything really fast and quick. But almost every slide that we have today talks about another class that we teach, that we do a whole another hour and a half on. So if anything looks really interesting and we breeze over it really fast, it's because we're trying to cover a lot today about basic computing. But we do go into those a little bit more specifically in some of the other classes that we do about internet safety, choosing a browser, staying away from viruses, how to stay safe on the internet. You can look at all those other topics, and then you can always ask Mike if there's a topic that you're interested in. And he works really well with Colin and I to come up with the agendas and the titles and the topics that we're going to teach. So great to see some familiar faces and some new faces. If at any time, I know muting and unmuting can be cumbersome. So if you have something that you'd like to ask or talk about, I keep my chat window open on the screen. And if there's a question that you have that you'd like to talk about while we're presenting, you're welcome to send a chat. You can send it to everyone, and that way Colin can see it and Mike and I can see it if we want to address it during the class, or if you want to unmute and ask a question, that's totally acceptable too. The more participation we have, the better. I do like to talk, and I do like to talk fast. So there's a lot of information here. I want to get through as much of it as I can. I put kind of a thesaurus or a dictionary at the end, just of a lot of terminology or jargon. Some of it's alphabetized, some of it's breakdown by topic. We won't cover all that because I don't need to read to you guys tonight, but it's on there kind of as a reference. If there's something that you ever get stuck on or try to figure out, we can talk about that in detail. I will lean on Colin a little bit for a couple of the slides today, because Colin deals with these topics on an ongoing basis as far as what computers today should be capable of doing, what the specs are. We'll explain what they are, and then Colin can explain what the current levels and standards for that are. So with that, we will jump into the presentation. So computers have become an integral part of everything that we do today. A computer actually these days is considered itself a wide term, because nowadays even the little devices that we carry in our pocket are computers. I've heard the story, I think it's something about that there's more power in one of our iPhones today than the amount of computers they had to land the first lunar lander on the moon, or something to that effect. So there's a lot of different kinds of computers. We'll talk about as many of them as we can cover today. But it's important to understand the components of the computer and the different terminologies. So that'll help you understand what the concept of a computer is as a whole. So a CPU is the first thing that we're going to start off with. And a CPU stands for, we'll show you some pictures of these in a minute. A CPU is your central processing unit. This is the brains of your computer. This is where your computer handles data, stores data, has its memory, has its power, has what's a motherboard. So when you are buying a computer, you're usually trying to figure out what's in the CPU and what are its capabilities. This is where the brains of your computer are. This is where the instructions go in and the results come out. It actually measures in cycles of time. Some of this is going to be really high level, but if you understand it, great. If you don't, it's not very vital to understanding how to use a computer, but it measures in cycles of time called megahertz. And that's why the MHz of a computer's processor is sometimes referred to as the clock speed. If you think about CPUs beating like a heart, the megahertz would be the example or the speed that it can beat at. So there's a couple different kinds of memory in a computer. And the first one that we're going to talk about is RAM. And RAM stands for random access memory or ready access memory. So this is going to be like think of it as like a notepad on your computer, where your computer sends information or instructions on what to do, and it can quickly access it from everywhere. So they're accessible in different order. So it's not like the longer it's been since you've stored something, the longer it's going to take to come up. It does access that hard drive in all kinds of areas and directions, so that it can pull up information no matter how old or how new, in the same speed. So it's not sequential. If you think of it like a CD where you can skip from song to song versus like a tape where you really had to fast forward and play through the whole tape to get to it, random access memory is more like that CD. So RAM is a part of your hard disk drive. So your hard disk drive, or HDD as you'll see it sometimes, is your is more like an audio CD. Computer can read and write to it, so it's going to be able to store information and access information.
What happened to it?
We kind of lost you a little bit there, Trevor. Your microphone's not working right.
Oh, now you're totally quiet. Try unplugging your webcam and plugging it back in.
Maybe it's one of those kids who was crawling around trying to not be seen.
Right.
Trevor, the one talking?
But he's the one putting the program on.
Testing, testing, testing.
There we go.
Okay. The device is ready to go. All right, back online.
Yep,
Yep.
All right,
I
let me
can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Time to bring my computer in, Colin. I told you I was going to exchange this one for the other one you worked on for me. This one's starting to act up. Apologize about that. So your hard drive, I don't know when I cut out, but we can pick up if you have any questions. But that your hard drive is going to be where your computer writes information and reads information. The abbreviation for hard disk drive is your HDD, and we can move on to the next one because I feel really embarrassed about that slide now. These are different terms of the hardware. When you're talking about buying a computer, these are the different things that are considered as hardware. So a couple of them we already talked about, but it's going to be the term that refers to all the physical parts of your computer system. So this is the hardware is your monitor, your keyboard, your mouse, the main case that stores the CPU and the RAM. And I'll talk about that because there's different kinds of CPUs. I'll show you pictures. We talked about what a CPU was. A disk drive is going to be a device that you can put on your computer that will either be a CD drive or a floppy disk drive, a thumbnail drive, or a temporary hard drive. It's something you can add outside of your computer. We just talked about what a hard drive was, and then we should know keyboards, monitor, mouse, printer. These are all peripheral devices that we use today to help us use our computers. Software, on the other hand, is going to be a term that refers to the instructions that are needed to make the computer work. So software these days, not much of it's tangible. There used to be stores that you could go to buy software. I haven't seen software in a store in a long time. Everything's sold online. Mostly, I don't know, Colin, I'm sure you can still buy software somewhere that comes on a disc or at a store.
Yeah, it's less common now.
But
usually it won't even fit on a CD anymore.
Sure, that's scary for me. So a software is also known as a program, and it's a set of files that are used to perform various actions on a computer. So, for example, you can have a program that will run your word processing. So, like Microsoft Word is a program.
You okay here?
Yep.
I'll stand up and run.
An operating system is going to be what your computer uses to make things go. So different operating systems are usually, the two big ones are going to be a PC operating system and an Apple operating system. But within those platforms, Windows 10 would be an operating system. And then I think the latest one on Apple is Big Sur is their operating system. And every computer requires a set of programs known as the operating system to make all the other programs in their work. So your word processor, database, spreadsheet programs cannot work unless the operating system there is on that computer. However, some programs now are based in the cloud, and you can access them through both your computer that has an operating system and maybe another computer that would have a different operating system. So you could use the same program on your PC at home that you use on your iPhone and access the same files because they're based on the cloud, not necessarily on your computer. So programs written for one specific operating system aren't going to work on another, but if you're using programs in the cloud, it opens a whole different can of worms. So we'll talk about that. To give you some ideas of different computers and what different things may look like, this is the old school. This is what I still like to use. This is called a tower. All the different slots in there are where you can put different devices. You can put extra hard drives. You could put floppy disk drives, CD-ROM drives, extra memory. You could do those kind of things. So this has been around for a long time. I think I've had one since I was in college that looked something like this, and that was a long time ago. It's one style of desktop computer, but because of its size, people usually keep it on a table or a desk. So this is also known as a desktop computer, not to be confused with the desktop of your operating system. These are called compact desktops, which are really nice, which a compact desktop is a much smaller version of a tower. Much harder to work on yourself because it's a lot smaller and everything's in a lot tighter space, but nicer because they don't take up as much room on your desk. So they're about the size of a shoebox or less, still can be set on your desktop or on the floor. Compact discs are great if you want something that's small, but not necessarily portable, not really easy to move around. So if you're going to leave it at home and just log into it, these are a great option. The all-in-one seems to be really popular. This is what we have at our office now, where basically the CPU is built into the monitor or attached to the back of the monitor. So it's basically an all-in-one. You put the monitor on your desk. You don't need a separate tower. You don't need a separate box to put on there. You just put the monitor on and you are set to go. So all the brains and the monitor are all attached in one spot. So you sit down, plug it in, and you are good to go. Laptops, this is probably, I mean, Colin, you can talk a little bit more about the market share, I guess, but I would say this is probably the most popular item out there as of late. Laptops, I don't think any of them weigh up to 8 pounds anymore, but some of them used to. They're probably all more around that 2 pound or sub 2 pound mark. But the monitor, keyboard, everything's built in, including the camera, accelerometers. You can get wireless access with them. They're all really powerful. It can do a lot of things. But if you're like me and you have humongous hands, like typing on a laptop for me is really difficult. I'm not really good at the controls, but they do make them now with touch screens, and they're a neat option. Tablets have also become very popular. So like I said, everything from a phone to a tablet is considered a computer nowadays. I have a tablet that it's a Microsoft Surface. I like it a lot. I still like a desktop with monitors. I like a big workspace when I'm working on a computer for a long time. But if I'm laying in bed on a Sunday morning and I want to do something on a computer, like my tablet's really nice just to flip up and have in bed. So it's a mobile computer with a touchscreen display. You can usually attach a keyboard or peripherals to it if you want to. Sometimes you can attach them to a TV, or you can have them cast to a TV wirelessly so you can get a bigger display out of them and use this as like your CPU. They have a rechargeable battery. I'd say that's probably one of the biggest things in determining these is how long the battery life lasts for your needs. They come equipped with sensors, including digital cameras, microphone, accelerometers. They can make it so the images always stay upright no matter how much you turn them or hold them. And they can use your fingerprint to use on the touchscreen. You can use a stylus, and they're getting more and more secure all the time. So these are a cool option. So Colin, I just put these up here as things to look at and consider. Some of them you're much more of an expert than me, but I just thought maybe you would want to touch on these of like, what are the current like memory statistics that you're looking for in like a base machine and a high-end machine, what you're seeing in battery life, and just kind of hit on some of those options on like what you're selling at the store and what you're seeing in the market.
Yeah, I'd say if folks are looking for a new computer, whether it's a desktop or a laptop, if it's running, and I'm talking about PCs here, not necessarily Macs, but if it's running Windows 10, in terms of memory, that's the RAM, remember, you're going to want something with at least 8 gigabytes of RAM. That's really the threshold where it's going to run well and you're not going to notice a lot of lag just based on the constraints of the operating system. The processors that we sell down here are all Intel. So what I would say for most people is you want at least an i3 processor for a new computer. And it does go further up. There's an i5, there's an i7 and an i9. For most people who are not doing like hardcore gaming or engineering tasks or video editing, you don't need an i9. The ones I sell the most of are i5s. That seems to be a really good in-between option in terms of affordability versus function. Battery life just kind of naturally gets better every year. In terms of laptops that have really good battery life, like the Lenovo Yogas tend to that's a function that they really try to optimize. But for a fully functioning PC, it's not a brand new laptop. It's not unusual to find one that will last for, anywhere between 8 and 14 hours at this point, which is pretty good. Keyboard, like Trevor was talking about with his big hands, this is something you definitely want to, you can buy a laptop that has a full-size keyboard. So usually computers in the 15.6-inch range for the laptops are going to have full-size keyboards, and there are a couple of manufacturers that make 17-inch laptops. And that's the point when you're getting into the 17-inch machines. That's the point where you're really starting to sacrifice a little bit of mobility and light, the weight considerations in terms of what how big of a screen you want. It is getting almost impossible now to find a new laptop computer with a CD or a DVD drive in it. It's just not something that's seen as a priority by the manufacturers anymore. Most of the software is downloaded, so it's an option you have to look hard for at this point. Most desktops still have them, but even those are starting to be phased out, just because most of your data is going to be transferred through the internet and not through CDs and DVDs. When it comes to types of hard drives, hard drive is a little bit of a misnomer here, because there is something that's called a solid state drive that is whereas a hard disk drive is comprised of magnetic spinning disks that are actually physically spinning within the drive to read and write your information to storage. And the speed of those disks is the constraint, because you're moving a physical object. So there's a type of drive called a solid state drive that just consists of these basically layers of copper that have electrons pulsing through it. And obviously that can read and write information much faster than the physically spinning platters. And so if you have a computer with a solid state drive in it, the result is that it's going to boot much faster. It's going to open programs much faster. It's going to do pretty much everything faster, moving files around. So I would say the number one thing you can do right now to get a computer that's not going to make you want to bang your head against the wall waiting around for it, is to spring for a solid state drive. If you're looking for a new computer, make sure it has an SSD or solid state drive in it. That's the number one thing at this point. Pretty much everything has wireless capability in terms of laptops and tablets. There are still desktop computers that might not have wireless. What you can expect for included software, typically it's just the operating system now. There was a long time where it was big to bundle Microsoft Office. That's less common now. Sometimes there'll be a little, if you're buying online, there'll be a little checkbox, to get a subscription to Office 365, which is Microsoft's subscription service. But other than that, there might be some free or trial versions of software that they're going to try to get the manufacturer makes a deal so they can lower the price of the computer by including some trial versions of different software that might be good for 6 months or so. So those are good things to keep in mind the first time you boot up a new computer. What are the things that are not gonna work in 6 months? Or maybe what are the things that you maybe don't want, so you can go through control panel and just remove the things that you don't want to begin with. For manufacturer support, pretty much every major computer manufacturer is going to have a 1-year warranty on any consumer electronics. So Dell, HP, Lenovo, that's going to be a warranty that covers hardware failures. It will not cover drops, accidents, spills. So if you close baseball in your laptop and the screen breaks, that's not gonna cover it. But if it just won't turn on one day, it will cover that. Graphics and sound cards. This is really less of a concern for most typical users. If you are somebody who is into playing video games, you might want to worry about or doing like editing with video or sound. It's something you might think about. I will say this is one place where desktop computers still really shine because they are easily upgradable. You can remove the video cards and do a new video card when the next best thing comes out, or when it becomes cheaper to get the what's just behind the cutting edge. So if you're a big gamer or if you're going to be doing video editing and things that are really resource intensive for graphics and sound, you'll want to get a desktop computer. And a webcam, the thing that all of us found out that we suddenly needed about a year ago. Um, uh, these are going to be built into most tablets and laptops. For most desktops, you can get one from Logitech or Aukey or some of the other major brands for between $30 and $80. The prices have gone up considerably since the pandemic started because there was a real run on them during the lockdown. But most webcams will have a camera and a microphone in them. So you'll be able to talk to people as well as have people see you for situations like this.
Well done, Colin. My kids are feeding me cookie bars. I apologize. So one of the classes that we teach, this is the slides that I was talking about, that we teach a whole class on this. So we talk about the internet and the World Wide Web. But just to give you some basic coverage here, the internet is a network of computers, and we should all be familiar with that idea of what the internet is. But it's common for the terms internet and World Wide Web to be used interchangeably, but they don't actually mean the same thing. The internet is the wiring that allows all the computers over the world to communicate, and the World Wide Web is like the operating system that operates using this wiring. So web pages are transmitted via the internet connections, but there's more to the internet than just the web. So many other types of data travel across the internet, such as email would be another thing that travels across the internet. So I don't think anybody's ever going to correct you if you use the internet and World Wide Web independently or incorrectly, because they're pretty interchangeable, but just to let you know for specific sake, they are different. Okay, another thing that we teach a whole class on is which web browser to use. So I think we just did this one recently, but a web browser is a program that you use to look at and navigate between pages on the World Wide Web. Examples can include Internet Explorer, which is now replaced by Microsoft Edge, Firefox, which I think is still around. Apple uses Safari, Google uses Chrome, and I don't know, Colin, you usually have a couple of the other ones that are in there.
Opera, Chromium, DuckDuckGo now has their own browser, which is a good one if you're worried about data security.
Yeah. So a lot of the companies that have their own search engines are now like kind of manufacturing their own web browser. So everything's integrated, which is a nice feature. Some people refer to their web browsers as the internet, whereas really it's the browser's only a way to view the web pages on the internet. Bandwidth and broadband, a couple other terms here. So bandwidth is an indication of how fast the data travels along a connection or travels across those wires we were just talking about. The greater the bandwidth, the faster the data. So if you think of it as like a pipe, your bandwidth is a pipe. The bigger the pipe, the faster the data will go. Broadband is a rather vague term. It refers to bandwidth somewhere above the old dial-up modem, but there is no precise definition of the term. Broadband connections are usually always on. So we'll talk about what a modem is and how it got its name, where it would transfer sounds into data and then that. And it would have to have an active phone line connection to do it.
You softened again, Trevor.
Where I hope my mic's not just bad. Is it off again?
Hey, Trevor, we
It's
lost
not.
you.
It's not completely off, but it's quite quiet.
Nothing.
Now it's off completely. You want to try pulling it and
All you folks out there, don't feel bad when your equipment goes because it happens to everybody.
Yeah, and it's always funny every time.
Oh, okay. Testing.
Yep,
There
you're
you go.
good.
All right, so it must be time to upgrade my webcam microphone. I'm getting a fail to detect microphone error occasionally. But am I back on now?
Yep.
Good sound? Okay, sorry. My yellow square usually lights up on my screen. It's not doing that. So there's various companies that'll provide broadband speeds such as ADSL, cable, satellite. In our area, you're going to be looking at Consolidated, Jaguar. Colin, who do you have out there in the sticks?
Oh, I'm not in the sticks anymore, Trevor. I
Uh-oh.
live in West Mankato now.
I didn't know you
Um,
moved.
but I have Spectrum.
Okay. And then who was it though out there? Who did the DSL
That
way
was
out?
it was Consolidated. Yeah, that
Okay.
was the only game in town, and it took them years to run the DSL out there, and it was still pitiful.
Okay. So just some basic terms. So this is modem. So Colin, this is my first entomology for you today, which you probably already knew these, but Colin's quite the wordsmith. So I tried to impress him with figuring out where words came from when it came to technology. So the word modem was originally coined in the days when computers communicated by converting numbers into sounds that could be transmitted over a regular phone line. So at each end, you needed a modulator to generate the sounds and then transmit a demodulator to convert the sounds back into numbers. So computers use binary code, zeros and ones. So from the modulator and demodulator came the word modem. Did you know that one, Colin?
I did not know that, but it makes sense.
All right. Woohoo, I won. With modern digital communication, no conversion to and from an audible sound is necessary, even if it's common to hear people talking about broadband modems or ADSL modems. They're just referring to devices that provide the connectivity. So devices nowadays aren't even really modems at all because they communicate digitally, but the word stuck and its meaning is shifted to regular to refer to digital devices as well. So it's kind of like how we still talk about dialing a phone, even though nobody actually dials a phone. It's just a term that stuck. So memory and disk space, this is one that Colin was trying to explain, and it just is an ongoing thing to understand in your hard drive. Which one is memory? So how much space do you have to store stuff? And which one is memory on how fast your computer is going to operate? And then which one's disk space so that you have space to store things on your computer. So it's a really big source of confusion. Generally refers to the temporary storage used by a computer, but a computer loads programs and data into its memory in order to carry out the task. This is that random access memory, where disk space or hard disk space is more of a permanent store that holds files when the computer is off. And it's from here that the computer loads things into its memory. So strictly speaking, you don't store things in the computer's memory because that vanishes when you turn the machine on and off. So it's more the hard disk space. But if you're like me and you screw that up all the time, you have people like Colin that know what you're trying to say and they'll help you out. We teach a whole class on this slide as well. So this is just a really quick breeze through, but virus, spyware, Trojan, worm, and malware. So these are often confused, even though they have distinct meanings. All of them are not good for your computer. So a virus is a piece of software that can copy itself. Just like you think of like a virus in your body, it attaches itself to another program in order to survive and replicate. It may have some malicious intent, or it may exist simply just to reproduce. A worm is similar to a virus, but it can exist independently. It doesn't need to attach itself to a separate program. A Trojan or a Trojan horse, I'm sure Colin knows this one, is a piece of software that gains access to a computer by pretending to be a benign or hiding within an innocent-looking application. The name is derived from the wooden horse employed by the Greek army during the Trojan Wars. Spyware is software that secretly monitors your daily activity, tries to gain private information from you. By and large, all of them have some malicious intent to harm data or spy on your activity. Malware is a general term for all such programs. It can mean software or of whatever sort written with a malicious intent. And viruses are generally malware, but there is more to malware than just viruses. And then the latest one, Colin, is ransomware. That's the big one that people are using now, where they use some form of these programs to hijack your data, and then they hold your data hostage to try to charge you money to get your data back. Bits and bytes. Again, not a conversion that you need to have memorized, but kind of a handy visual if you ever wondered. If you've been around computers for a while, you know that we've gone from bits to kilobytes to megabytes to gigabytes to terabytes. And I hadn't heard of a petabyte yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing petabyte speeds and petabyte storage. But so we started off with kilobytes. That's 1,000 bytes. A megabyte was 1,000 kilobytes. A gigabyte was 1,000 megabytes. A terabyte's 1,000 gigabytes. Just so that you know, like, we don't want to be looking for any computers that have kilobytes anymore. We're into terabytes now for storage and megabytes for RAM. Is that right, Colin? Okay. So terabytes, a ton of storage. I don't know
So
a
it's
lot of
it's
people.
it's gigabytes for RAM.
Okay.
So there are some devices out there that you can buy that have a terabyte of RAM. The new Apple Pro computer that came out last year has a terabyte of RAM, and
Wow.
it costs only $50,000. So if you want to spring for that, it's not exactly a budget item, but yeah. So typically, RAM is gigabytes, storage is terabytes, and there was a time when I first started getting into tech, a terabyte of storage was extremely expensive, and now it's pretty much the standard, and you can get a 1 terabyte drive for well under $100 now.
Well, it's the same thing, like on these little thumb drives, like just to get a gigabyte on these at one time was incredible speed and was ridiculously expensive. And now you can get these little, can you get a terabyte in these yet, Colin, in the thumb drives?
Yep, you sure can.
Yeah, you can get like a terabyte in a thumb drive. And I mean, you used to have to buy like a whole separate unit of hard drive to get a terabyte. So just some bits and bytes. A reboot. I don't know. Colin, did you know this one? Did you look at the slides yet? Or have you seen them for the first time?
I glanced through them.
Okay. I like this one. This one made me happy because I was like, oh, Colin's going to like this one if he doesn't know it already. So when you switch a computer on and off again, it's called, or to be reloaded. It's not the same as placing a computer in a standby or hibernate and then resuming. A reboot actually requires that all the software is turned off and completely reloaded. And the term derives from bootstrap, as in the phrase to pull oneself up by one's bootstraps, because the similarity that seemingly impossible act as a computer can't run without being first loading some software, but must be running before the software can be loaded. So that's where the term reboot came from. A cookie is not the delicious snack that my daughter just handed me, not in terms of computers, but it's a small text file that's sent to your computer by a website that you have visited. They can be very useful for a computer, that they can allow websites to recognize who you are when you're on, memorize passwords, memorize what pages you like to look at, fill out forms. But they also, and they can't store viruses or threats, but they can be used to track your activity across different websites in order to provide, for example, your targeted advertisements or email. A firewall is a piece of computer software or hardware that can restrict data that's allowed to flow through. So if you're trying to prevent certain data from getting onto your computer, this is a way to do that. I know the Windows operating system has a built-in firewall. I'm assuming Apple does too, built-in firewall. And so firewalls block traffic that's undesirable in some way, the intention being to prevent infection by malware and so on without restricting the user from carrying out legitimate activity. So if you have the firewall on when you start using the computer, you probably never notice that anything has impacted. If for some reason you were really big into using your computer without the firewall and then you turned it on, you might notice a few things that were changing, but I think the default is on now. There was a small period of time that it wasn't default to on, but now I think they have, especially Windows 10 has it defaulted to on.
Oh yeah, it'll make all sorts of noise and complain if you turn off the Windows firewall.
Okay. Spam, nobody knows where this term actually came from, so I was disappointed to learn that this is why it's related to mail this way. But unsolicited email messages sent out in bulk and generally commercial in nature. The term is more widely referred to for junk mail today. or comments on blogs, I get about 30 to 60 pieces of junk email a day into my folder at on my Hotmail address. So I spend a lot of time in my day just deleting junk email or spam that I don't want. I have all my filters set on. I have my contacts. So things don't make it into my inbox, but I'm still able to track that people are using access to my address somehow and sending me crap that I don't want about my windows or my life insurance. Or it's a socially engineered avenue to get you to think that you probably signed up for something or that you have a password that's wrong. So they use really popular things, like a lot of people shop at Walmart, a lot of people shop at Sam's. So you'll see stuff for those two stores all the time. Amazon's a big one. I was trying to look if I had any right now in my inbox. But think of any of the most popular places you shopped. eBay was big for a while. They do a lot of bank names. So if you have a Chase card or trying to think of some of the other branches of banks, they'll send you stuff and say like, hey, somebody tried to log into your account. So click here to log in and type in your password and email. And if you're not paying attention to what address it takes you or website that it takes you, it can be really dangerous. So we teach a whole class on that. A CAPTCHA, these are new, and I personally hate these, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But CAPTCHA checks are strings of letters or numbers that have to be typed in on some web pages before they can be saved. They exist because humans find interpreting these strings relatively easy. Computers do not. So setting up these checks therefore blocks an automated process, such as one generating spam from using the page, whereas a human is still able to. So the acronym CAPTCHA actually stands for, did you know this one, Colin?
I did know this one, actually. Yeah.
Completely automated public Turing test to tell computers and humans apart, rather than a contrived way of arriving at an acronym that sounds like the word capture. So if you've ever been on a website where it's like, click on all the pictures of a taxi, or click on all the pictures of a crossroads, or pick on all the pictures that have a light in it, or you have to, I like the numbers and letters ones always bug me. And the biggest reason is because I read a book about a guy that does scams for a living, and he talked about developing web pages that he would always make it that the first 3 attempts on a CAPTCHA didn't work because he was selling the data to people to say how many times people clicked on his website. So if you put a CAPTCHA in there and you entered it and it was like wrong, and you did it again and it said wrong, and you did it again and said wrong, then by the 4th time you did it, you got it right. He was able to say like, look, everybody that went to your website clicked on it 4 times. So I read about how he did that. And so now anytime I do a caption, I get it wrong. I'm like, I think I got it right. I think this is a scam, but just something to be aware of if you have as much trouble with captchas as I do, that somebody out there was intentionally designing it that way. These are just some keyboard shortcuts that we won't go through them all. But there was a time and day before every computer had a mouse, and you had to learn to operate and do these things without being able to right click. Or if you operate a Mac, some of their mice don't have the right button. So you have to learn to do these things. Obviously, the Windows key is not going to be on a Mac, but the Control C, V, P, and X should still be on there. The other one that I like to use all the time, and my receptionist now calls me almost on a daily basis to be like, what's that keyboard command that you told me again? She plays a lot of casino games, and so she gets a lot of pop-ups on her computer, and she doesn't know how to close them because like an X won't show up or whatever. But if you hit Alt and F4 at the same time, it'll close whatever the most recent window is on your computer. So if you ever end up on a website that something pops up and you don't know how to close it, that keyboard command of Alt and F4 will take you a long way. But this would be a good slide to print out if any of these look useful to you, and you can take a look at them. So using a mouse, this is getting really introductory. I guess if any of you are here, you've probably figured out how to use a mouse by now, but just you can move a mouse and it can be a pointer or a cursor on the screen. It changes shape depending on what you're doing. Arrow lets you select things and move them around, and a hand will let you open a link on the internet. You can use the mouse to do different things like selecting things, opening things, moving things. You can drag and drop. You can hold down the left button once you select stuff to drag files from one spot to another. You can right click on the mouse to cut and paste after you have items selected. You can also experiment with using like the shift and control buttons when you're trying to select multiple items. So there's some advanced things you might be able to do with a mouse that you weren't aware of other than just clicking on its open web pages. Using a keyboard, again, really simple. You'll notice that they're laid out in non-alphabetical order. This is called a QWERTY keyboard. I know some people have a way to pronounce that. I'm not sure what it is.
Pretty.
This is a big deal on phones for a while, of having like when they went from T9 texting, which is when you had all the keys and then the 3 letters on each key, to a phone having a QWERTY keyboard on it. So pressing shift lets you do it either gives you capital letters, or if your key has 2 functions on it, the shift gives you the upper function on that key. And yeah, that's about it. Keyboards aren't super exciting, but just some stuff and how to move in spaces, what the space bar does. Tab gives you bigger spaces, like when you start a paragraph. Enter key moves the cursor down a line. To delete, you can use the backspace button, and the cursor will delete to the left. Desktop and icons, again, I tried to talk about this earlier, there's a big difference between a desktop computer and the desktop you see when you log into your computer on the monitor. But the desktop in this case is what you see when the computer's turned on. This is where you're going to open program files. They're going to appear on your desktop. From your desktop, you can use shortcuts. Those are going to be what appears on the bottom on that little toolbar. The icon is a little thing that represents a file or a folder or a program on so all the little pictures, they can represent files, folders, or a program. Each file and folder can look different. You can even customize those. And then on a PC, the start button is going to let you open programs and files on your computer. The taskbar will show you what is currently open on your computer. Just a couple different desktops and icons. A folder is where you store files. When you open a folder, you click on it twice and it'll show you the contents. You can use the scroll bar. Some mouse have a scroll bar on them, and you can use that to go up and down. The title bar is going to be at the top of the screen. It's going to tell you what the name of your folder is that's open. The menu bar is usually right below the title bar. That's where it has commands where you can go back, forward, new, redo, undo, depending on what program that you're in. And then the toolbar is usually right below the menu bar, which is going to have the shortcuts to the commands. Just some other stuff about minimizing, using the minus button, the X button to close. Real simple stuff, but if you want to review it, you can print these slides and take a look. And then we do a whole class on this too, is how to set up a password, how to make your computer more secure. So by assigning a password to your Windows user account or your Apple account, you can prevent people from accessing your files and your personal data. This is the first line of security on a computer, and I do highly recommend it. If you look at that screen, like those are some of the most common passwords that are used. So if your password is any one of those, please change it. So just because it's longer doesn't mean that it's any better. There's a couple of software programs now that randomly generate passwords for you. So you just have to memorize one really good password, and they'll generate all the other passwords for whatever programs or logins that you need. It's a pretty handy feature. LastPass is the one that Colin recommended to me a while ago, and I still really like it. Even though I had to write down the password that I made for the full-on login, but keeps all my other passwords secure and makes it really easy to log in. Colin, you still recommending LastPass? Are you still on board with that one?
Yeah, it's still good.
Cool.
Hey, Colin, since LastPass got bought out, do you see any problems with still using it?
I don't think so. I haven't seen any reason that they've degraded in their quality of service or anything so far. So I mean, I feel like sometimes when it comes to technology, there'll only be 5 companies in another 10 years anyways. So they'll just keep getting bought by bigger and bigger corporations, and then we're at their mercy. But yeah, from what I've heard, it's still a good, reliable program.
Okay.
So protect your laptop. Oh, Colin, I got a couple more on that one. So the other thing besides setting up a password is protecting your laptop from damage. Invest in a good case to protect it. Get a screen protector. I saw somebody the other day. So Colin was talking about warranties, and I was going to mention this one then, but I thought I'd save it for now. But he wrapped his laptop in rubber bands, like 10,000 rubber bands, and then dropped it off a second-story building. And it bounced, and it didn't look damaged, but then when he opened up, the monitor and everything on the inside was smashed. So because there wasn't anything protecting between the monitor and the keyboard, but the outside looked good. But yeah, a case, my daughter uses a case for her school computer. It works really good. And the last thing is Microsoft now has a picture password. So if your computer or laptop has that capability where you can use a picture password, it's almost impossible for people to get past because they're not aware of what you have to touch or push on to make the picture password work. I haven't used it, but I've heard that it's more secure on a phone, and it's kind of a cool idea because it's harder to replicate. Computer maintenance. So this was actually like the first couple classes that Colin and I ever taught, or like a workshop that we did where we had people bring a computer to the old Mankato Computer location, and we just helped them do some basic maintenance on their computer and then helped them do some more advanced things. So something we'd still like to offer in the future. We just haven't, with COVID and everything else, it's definitely been put on the back burner, but something we hope to offer again in the future, where if you have a laptop or even if you had a tabletop computer and you wanted to bring it in, we would get it set up, turn it on, and then show you how to do a couple of these maintenance things, and then give you some options on some customizing. But making sure that your firewall's turned on, like Colin said, it'll beep a lot at you. If it's not, make sure the firewall feature is set up to stop people from downloading malicious code and viruses onto your computer. Use your antivirus software. Again, Windows has, I think it's Windows Defender, or is that the firewall? I'm trying to remember what their antivirus is.
Yeah, it's Windows Defender.
Okay. So that's going to come with all Windows 10 computers, or if you have a third-party one that you like to use, it may have came with a sample, like Colin said, like McAfee. It'll scan your computer and remove viruses. Using a system restore, we do a whole class on how to back up your computer, when to back up your computer, why to back up your computer. But coming up with a point that is where if something happened to your computer, you have a spot that you could say, okay, if I bought a new computer, I'd want to restore it from this point, and it would look exactly like how my computer's set up. Optimizing your hard drive, which will clean out any damaged or obsolete files. Knowing what your battery life is, how it's working when it's unplugged, how it's working when it's charged in. All batteries wear out, and if your battery doesn't hold a charge as long as it used to, it might be time to either buy a replacement battery or talk to Colin about how difficult it is to replace a battery on said system. Disk cleanup's another one. By using the disk cleanup feature to free up some space on your hard drive, this helps your computer perform better. And then I know Windows pushes out updates automatically, and if I remember right, it's like on the first Tuesday of every month.
Yeah, second Tuesday, but
Second Tuesday of every month. And but I still, on Sunday mornings, I'll usually get up, turn on all the computers, and just check if there's a Windows update and check if there's a Microsoft Store update, and then download, restart, and then check the stores again, check the updates. I do that manually. It's just a little thing I like to do. I've taught my kids to do it. It's a good way to get familiar with your computer and kind of just lets you keep track of, if you do it every week, then like, okay, how fast is it running? How long did this take last week? So all these little tips, some of them are one time, set it and forget it. Other ones are things that you should do once a week or once a month. Using the internet, again, this is things that we talked about and we have a whole class for, but I'll give you just some basics here. We talked about the difference between the internet and the World Wide Web, but the information on the internet is now contained in websites and web pages. To connect the internet, you're going to need an internet service provider. We talked about those when we were mentioning broadband. Jaguar's relatively new player to the area. They're not everywhere in and around Mankato yet, but they're growing. I personally use their service. I find it to be at least the same consistent price year after year. And their service and speeds for me have been incredible compared to the other company I was trying to use out here in Madison Lake. So your mobile phone company, your home phone, cable, television provider, and your local supermarket chain might all offer internet connections. A broadband internet connection allows you to access the internet. The address bar is where you're going on a website, or it's called a URL. Example for the URL for the BBC website is going to be bbc.co.uk. www stands for World Wide Web, which you don't even have to type in most addresses anymore. It used to be a really big thing. Most websites have that at the beginning. Then you have the name of the website, and then the designation at the end just shows that it's either in the United Kingdom, or it might show that it's a government organization, an educational organization, or just a commercial website. Web browsers, we talked about these briefly. Web browsers help you view websites and web pages. They all have similar features. Colin talked about it, and you might want to be a little bit more secure depending on the convenience level of the thought of somebody else having your data and the security level of somebody else having your data. There are different browsers that you can use based on the varying levels there. Two of the popular browsers, again, are Internet Explorer. Now it's called Edge. Mozilla Firefox. Colin mentioned DuckDuckGo. Go.go. I always forget those ones. And at the top of the browser, like I said, you'll find an address bar, menu bar, toolbar. They should all look relatively similar. And nowadays, you used to have to search independently of typing in the address bar, but now all of the web browsers I've seen, the search bar and the address bar are combined in one. So you can just type your search right into the address bar, and depending on the browser that you're using, it'll take you to your results page, which is kind of nice. The toolbars on the web browsers, you're gonna have a home button, so you can change the page that comes up every time you turn on your web browser. That's called your home page, and that's a setting. So if you want it to be on the Google page, or you want it to be on the ESPN page, or the CNN page, or the Fox News page, or your stock market page, whatever it is, you can have that first page that comes up when you open up your internet browser be whatever you want it to be. The back button is going to take you back the last page you visited. The forward button will take you to the page you were before you press the back button. The refresh button will reload the page in case it gets stuck and you don't see anything. And the history button will show you all the websites and pages that you have visited recently. To explore inside of a website, there's going to be links that can take you to different pages in that website, links that can take you to a different website. Links can be texts, they can be a button, they can be a picture. Links are usually highlighted so you can spot them. And your cursor, like we said, is going to change from a pointer to a hand when you move over the link. So we do a whole class on search engines too. I think we just did this one recently, but there's millions of websites and web pages, and different search engines are going to get you to them in different ways. So there are really good overall search engines. There's search engines that can take you to specific kinds of topics. I don't have time to hit them all here because, like I said, we did a whole hour-and-a-half presentation on them, but Google, Yahoo, Bing, Go.go, different search engines will take you to different results based on which one you use. So finding the one that you want to use to get the most important information relevant to you takes a little practice, or you can sign up for our class and we'll tell you more about it. Opening and using the search engines, you type the address in, click on the arrow, hit enter, and it'll take you to the web pages, or take you to the results that you look for the items that you search in. Keywords are really important. You want to use logic to describe the most simple and direct way for asking something. And if you get results that are too broad, you can add words. And then once you find the ones that you like, you can click on it and it'll take you right to the page. Tips to improve your search engines. Use keywords, not full sentences or questions. If you can't find what you want, try using different words or a different way of expressing it. Practice putting keywords into the search box and pressing the search button. When the search results appear, know the difference between the most popular ones and the ads. And then to view a website, you just simply click on the link. So this is where the thesauruses begin and the jargon begins. So I don't want to have to go through each one of these, like I said, to read for you. This first, the A to Z, they're all in alphabetical order, and then we go a little different after that. So we still have about half an hour left, and we've covered a lot. I mean, everything from what a computer is, what a CPU is, what to look for when you're buying a new computer, to like what is a keyboard, what is a mouse. As far as basics of computing, we've hit it from a very high angle. Is there anything somebody wants to ask questions about on something they're trying to do on the computer that's kind of a basic level task or question?
What about something really complicated?
Open forum on anything they would like to do, like to know about.
Okay, got a question. Like I know I would assume that on a desktop you can look at, record a TV program or whatever, watch TV. Can you do that with the laptops also?
So there's two different things. The one is that you can stream television on the internet. So through a lot of different sources, you could go to cbs.com and play. You could watch Netflix. You can there are less legitimate websites where you can stream television.
Okay.
And then there's also the capability, which you can do on a laptop or a desktop. And then there's also, these were big in the 90s, what's called a capture card, where it's basically a card that you would hook like a coax cable up to, or an AV cable from a television to the back of your TV or your computer. Um, and it would basically record whatever is happening on the screen onto your computer's hard drive. Now why you would want to do that, I don't, that maybe your kid is playing in the state tournament, um, and you want to record the broadcast or something. But for the most part, that's sort of antiquated now, because most of the content you could want to find is already out there and digitally available.
Yeah, I'd say probably inventory somewhere like Vimeo, YouTube. I mean, I watched like the 2007 girls Minnesota State high school basketball quarterfinal game the other day. We were watching one of the current games on, I think, YouTube, and when that game broadcast got done, it was like, the next video we'd like to suggest to you is like the 2007 game that we still have on YouTube. And it was like, okay, let's watch the 2007 game. Like, I think I remember some of the players from that team. So it's pretty amazing what people have stored on there. So knowing the right video programs that are out there and on the internet to look at.
Well, and one thing about the pandemic too is that we were already sort of on the path to doing this sort of all digital, all online media landscape. But the pandemic has really pushed local institutions all over the world to just completely make the jump, you know. So most places had the capability of uh streaming a middle school swim meet uh several years ago, but now they have a reason to, and I don't think they're going to go back. So for most organizations, my mother is big into a poetry organization. They just did their entire convention all online and virtual. I think that next year, if they are able to do the convention in person, they'll probably still stream for people who are unable to make it. So a lot of these organizations are figuring out how to do these things and making access to it a lot easier.
Okay. I guess kind of what I was getting at, Mar, and I didn't explain it good enough, is um, there's been a number of people that will, when we have bad weather coming, the storm, and they're looking at the weather channel or whatever on their computer, they can take a snapshot of it and then say, here, see this? This is, here we are. This is where it's going, type of thing.
Sure. Well, so there's some things integrated into Windows 10 that enable you to do screenshots very easily. So now these are stationary, so they're just, single images, not necessarily moving, but there's something called the snipping tool, that if you just, click on the start menu and search for snip, it'll come up. And what this does is just opens this little utility here. and you can click new snip, and then you can just go ahead and draw a box around whatever you want to take a screenshot of. It'll open it in a little another little window. And from there, if you want to like share it on social media or in an email or whatever, just right
Or draw
click.
on it.
What's that?
Or you could draw on it, like you were
Or
saying,
draw
like
on it.
you could draw an arrow and say, here, this is point,
Yep.
like, I don't know, draw.
Yeah,
You could draw a line. And go, "Here, read
terminology
this."
is going this way.
Yeah.
Just right click on it and hit copy, and then you can paste it into social media or into an email, or you can save it to the computer as an image file. And then, title it whatever you like at that point. So that's really handy, especially for, taking small little, if you just want to capture little sections of something, but it works easily for a full screen as well. There are also some programs that are free that you can do to record everything that's happening on your screen with like as a movie. Let's see, the one that is really big. Oh, I just downloaded it. A while back. There's a lot of them out there. There's and they have varying levels of complications.
What would be, like, if you're going to search for one of those apps in the store, what would be the terminology you would use for to search for it in the store?
Screen recording software.
Yeah,
The big one is OBS. That's the one that I've used. And that is free to do most of your simple recording stuff. But if you just do a Google search, that's for free screen recorders. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll find several different articles relating to the best ones and why they're good. So lots of different things to try out there. That is a definitely something where you can go from being something super simple, like just a button and a frame, to extremely complicated very quickly, because video editing can get extremely complicated, but fun things to mess around with for sure.
Okay. Just go back for a second. Where do I find that snipping tool you talked about?
So if you just if you're running Windows 10, just click on the start menu.
Yeah.
And it'll be listed in the S's under all programs.
Okay.
But if you just type snip, it should show up. And there's actually two different programs. This is the classic one, the old one. That's the one I use because I'm kind of I'm into that vintage appeal. The new one that just came out in the last year is the snip and sketch. I'm not exactly certain what the major function differences are. It looks pretty much the same to me, but yeah,
Okay.
either way, a couple different ways you can do things.
Okay. One last question.
Mhm.
Unrelated to this. Have you looked at 1Password at all?
So that's like a similar thing to LastPass.
Right.
So it's something I would encourage people to look into if you're having troubles with managing your passwords.
Mhm.
1Password is a legit company. They're highly rated. So, I don't have anything. I don't have any personal experience with it. I've heard good things.
Okay.
It's certainly more secure. That model is certainly more secure than me deciding to do 15 variations on the same password across, 20 different accounts and not changing them for 3 or 4 years, which is what most people do.
Right.
The password managers, the main advantage is you only have to remember one password. It's all kept in an encrypted file, but also these services automatically cycle through extremely complex passwords for you. So it's a very low probability that anybody would ever be able to guess those, and then they get cycled really quickly. The other thing I would encourage everybody to do, whether you're using a password manager or not, is that for your most important accounts, the ones that you spend the most time in and are most tied to the most crucial parts of your life, like if you have a Gmail account that's linked to your Amazon and your Netflix and your Facebook, definitely set up two-factor authentication. If you're able to sign in and you're able to get into those accounts without it sending a message to your phone, then you need to set that up. It's the number one thing you can do to stop robots and hackers from getting into your accounts. Is anytime you have the option to set up two-factor authentication, you should do it. And all that is, for people who don't know what two-factor authentication is, it requires input from the computer that you're logging in on, and then it will send a text message or a code, or some sort of message to a phone. And so for somebody to be able to get into the account that they're trying to breach, they would have to have control over your phone as well. And so it makes it infinitely more complicated for them to breach your accounts, unless they've kidnapped you, which is unlikely. But right now, with today's technical landscape, it's a great thing to do. It slows you down a little bit. It is a little bit annoying at times, because you might sit down in the living room and try to log into your email and go, oh shoot, my phone is charging in the kitchen. But a little bit of inconvenience can save a lot of heartache when it comes to safeguarding these accounts, because we just have so much of our lives is tied up into our digital accounts these days.
Thank you.
Mhm. I have a question about with Zoom.
Yeah.
Now, so when the line is through the mute, that means that it's muted, huh? And then,
So when the line is through when you see the red microphone with the line through it, it's
Yeah.
muted. Yep.
okay. All right. And then I just got this new laptop computer about a month ago, and now I had a pop-up come up that said that my intro malware with Norton expires in 2 days. So to buy for a year, it costs 22 something. So I suppose, what are your recommendations for that?
So if you're somebody who's prone to getting viruses, Norton is an okay program.
Okay.
So if you've struggled in the last 5
Not-
years with
not
getting
really, no.
viruses, if you're
No.
somebody who's really careful about what you're clicking on,
Yeah, I am.
and you've not gotten a virus as far as you know, then you can probably get by with just going to control panel, uninstalling Norton. And then what's going to happen is Windows Defender, which is the free antivirus that's built into Windows 10, will automatically kick in. And it's a solid antivirus. It's a big improvement over Microsoft's past free offerings. It's really well integrated.
Is this AVG antivirus that's free? Or no?
AVG is free. That's not the one that's already on your computer. AVG, I would steer folks away from. It used to be a
Okay.
really good program, and then about 4 or 5 years ago, it got purchased by an advertising company.
So if I should go to that website and then pay that money, or you said I go to the control panel and,
I would go to the control panel and uninstall Norton. So
Okay.
the way you're gonna do that is just if you let's see what's the best way to get you there. Okay, so if you go to File Explorer, which it should be just the little manila folder down here at
Yep.
the bottom, and and then this is a little bit old school, but it's a reliable way. If you in this address bar,
Yeah,
just start typing control panel.
okay,
And we'll select control panel, and then this should look a lot like, in the Windows 7 days. If you click on programs and then click on uninstall a program, then you're going to get a list of all the programs that are installed on your
okay,
computer. They should be sorted by name by default, and you can
okay.
find Norton and just hit uninstall.
And then hit install on Norton, okay,
Uninstall. Yep.
or uninstall.
Yep.
Okay, and then it'll go automatically to, what did you say?
And then once Norton is uninstalled, it should automatically turn on Windows Defender, which is
Oh, okay,
that's the Microsoft one.
okay. And that's free, huh?
That's free. Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm glad I asked.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, all right.
Any other questions?
I'll throw a quick one back out there, like using some of these virtual programs. One is you can use a virtual background. But where do you put the file to use in the virtual background?
For Zoom?
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess it's only Zoom.
So Zoom, if you go to, let's see, where is it?
Could be the video.
So under next to video, next to the camera on your Zoom toolbar, there's a down arrow.
Yeah.
And if you go to video settings, and unfortunately you probably can't see any of this because Zoom hides itself when you're sharing the screen. But in video settings, there's a button that's background and filters.
Yours is actually showing up, Colin. It looks really good. I haven't ever seen.
Oh, really?
anybody be able to do it, but yeah.
So I can blur my background from here. I can say, oh, they have changed this though. See if I can go to,
Oh, we're gonna change everything. We should have Mike teach this. Mike's got a pretty background on his.
boy, it won't give me a mustache.
I wonder why.
Maybe it is. Um,
Wait for puberty.
yeah, and then these video filters are to add things in the foreground, apparently. There used to be more options for the no, I gotta get that off. There used to be more options here for the
Click on that. I have a green screen, Colin. It might come up there. I don't know. I thought that might give you some more background effects, but
okay, but you can, if you hit this plus sign here, you can
Oh, yeah.
add an
Oh, there.
right here, you can
Yeah.
add an image, and then you can just select something from your pictures folder. Let's see if I have something that's not too offensive here.
the
How
10th
about,
anniversary one.
how
That'll work.
about 10th anniversary?
Yeah, that one next to the one you have selected.
Oh,
That'd make a decent wallpaper.
oh, a solid. Okay,
Oh,
there we
sorry.
go.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Mhm.
Dun dun dun.
Is that what I really look like? Oh man, that's much better.
Better when you had the mask on.
Right, right. I look great from here to here. So yeah, that's how you do the backgrounds. The blur is actually kind of nice. It makes me feel a little disembodied, but
Well, you can see the person better.
absolutely, yeah.
Well, especially like I probably should have done something like that with having my kids running around in the background today. I could have blurred it out, and then you would have not known. They try to crawl.
Well, and it's not so uncanny. Like the thing about some of those backgrounds is that they really make it look like somebody's just sort of like floating out in the ether. Although I guess when I move my hand, it's a little weird. But yeah, that's Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
So feel free to peruse the terminology stuff, save it for a rainy day in case you're confused on anything that you come across. Like I said, it's 60 some pages. So I don't know if I'd print it, but it'd definitely be worth taking a look at if you're not familiar or want to get a little bit better at speaking geek. And yeah, it's always a pleasure. This one went a little quicker than I thought, but it's always hard to tell when you're trying to teach everything from what is a mouse to how to do basic computing.
Now, it said there were 9 participants. Were there in the class or did some not show up?
Anybody
Right.
who shows up there is actually there, but in this case, 3 of them are the people who are
Okay,
leading the presentation.
okay.
And then one of them has 2 people at it.
Oh, okay, so there are 9 then. Okay. I'm just learning here, so. I don't know what the green button share screen, what is that then?
So that's like what I'm doing here.
Okay.
Where I'm showing everything that's on one of my
Okay.
monitors.
I see, okay, and then record. I wouldn't do anything with that then.
Only
That's
if you
like
were,
what Mike's doing for this presentation. Is
Right.
recording
yeah,
for
if
the
you
file.
were,
Okay.
if you were hosting a meeting,
Okay.
and you wanted to save it, you could hit that.
Okay, and then reactions. That
Yeah.
looks,
It shows up. You can click on one right now. It's not gonna do anything. It's gonna show up on your screen that.
oh,
So like
I
if I
see.
said, hey, everybody stay on mute,
Oh,
but in order
I get
to show me something, like go ahead and give me a thumbs up if everybody's good.
Okay, so that's those little emojis then.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, and then chat would be like when his speaker wasn't on and he went in and,
Yeah. And I said,
Okay.
sorry.
okay,
And in
All
chat,
right.
you can pick whether you want the message to go to everyone or just individual people.
oh, okay.
And if you do it to just individual people, you and that person are the only people that can see the message. But be careful because it's really easy to start sending the wrong message to
Yeah.
the
Well, here it
message to the
says
wrong person.
everyone or then, oh, then you could do to just the one person.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. Okay,
So be careful. I've thought that I was on one person and ended up sending a message to everyone. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not
Every Zoom
overly
meeting I'm in.
confident with it, so, yeah,
just a good reminder to not say anything to everybody that you, or to one person that you wouldn't want everybody to hear.
yeah, okay, okay,
A good rule of thumb for life in general, right?
Yeah.
right,
Don't say anything you wouldn't want anyone else to hear.
okay. Okay. So if you wanted to just talk to one person, then you would just go in and the drop down box with that person's name, and then they could get back to you and nobody else would know about it then, huh?
Right. And then the cool thing is once you start a conversation with them, you can just click on their name in the chat bar and it'll pull them up as the next
Okay.
person you want to talk to.
Okay. Okay. All right.
I guess we never did do a class on Zoom, huh, Mike? That would have been, I think we tried at one point, but it was kind of hard to be like, log into Zoom to learn about how to use.
Right, right.
I
Exactly.
did do one at the very beginning, and it was kind of fun because we just had a bunch of people come on and we basically shared what we had learned doing Zoom. Because some people, a desktop computer is one thing. If you're looking at it through a tablet or a phone, some of the locations and commands are a little bit different. So it was nice to be able to share all of those points of view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was helpful.
Good. It's always a pleasure. I really enjoy doing this. And my favorite part is always getting to try to impress Colin with something because he's so smart and so good at this. I try to come up with something new he hasn't seen every time. So that's my challenge. But just always appreciate Mike and his constant communication and expressing to us what you guys want to learn about. So glad to continue to help and represent Mankato Computer Technology and keep coming and keep talking to Mike and letting us know how we can help and what we can do. And hopefully we'll be meeting in person soon. And hopefully we can get these workshops set up back at the office and get you guys in, get everybody out and about and get everybody safe and get your computers up and running.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Well, thanks
Okay.
everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.